Thank you, Chair Short, Madam Vice Chair Thompson, esteemed members of the Commission. My name is Tenari on behalf of the State of Hawaii Organization of Police Officers, simply known as SHOPO. I'm here to bring clarification to a statement by one Denny Santiago as far as SHOPO's role in representing him and any of our members. First and foremost, SHOPO does not represent any officers personally in criminal and or civil matters. Narrowly and specifically as to what he's alluding to are incidents or occurrences relative to internal type of investigations, relative to possibly a hostile work environment, sexual harassment, and the like. So SHOPO does not get involved in that. We have represented him in helping him answering the questions that were inquired through the Professional Standards Office. So I just wanted to bring clarification to that. So just to understand, for the Commission to understand SHOPO's role. First and foremost, we do not represent any officer in any criminal and any civil matters personally. So relative to what he was saying, again, it's an internal type of investigation, and he was specifically told that that type of allegations that he was lodging against another officer, that's internal, because it falls within the lines of, again, hostile work environment and possibly harassment and or sexual harassment if he felt in that way. Secondly, with the late Boyd Andrade, this is the second matter that I want to put before you. I know many of you have attended the quarterly award ceremonies that recognize the officers for going above and beyond the call of duty. Will there ever be a time where you guys will recognize the officers in this setting? Along with, again, yes, granted, there are things that have happened that does not sit favorably with regards to the reputation of HPD. I think we owe it to the people of Honolulu to know exactly all the great things that our officers have done time and time and time again. So again, for lack of a better term, to make the playing field even, if you will. Not just highlighting the things that officers have violated, but recognize the great work that the many officers have done. And I know many of you have attended those quarterly meetings. Lastly, I shared this with Mayor Caldwell before he was reelected to office. Just an idea, a recommendation on my part with regards to the Commission in creating an advisory board, a 5-person advisory board consisting of the Attorney General, state and federal, the Prosecutor's Office, a recently retired police administrator, and a representative from SHOPO as an advisory board to the Commission on any matters relative to internal and external, and again, more specifically with SHOPO involved, the labor relations and a perspective from SHOPO to give you guys an insight on what goes on with regards to grievances that are sustained or overturned, to include more importantly, termination type cases where you guys will need to know as to why SHOPO was successful in defending a grievant who was brought up for termination and later reinstated. That's all I have to say. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer any questions you all may have.
Yeah, do you have any questions for Sergeant Malfatti?
I just think it's a good idea that we do that. It's more balanced. I agree.
Now, we wouldn't have a vote. It was just an advisory board. And again, having the two attorney generals, federal and state, and the prosecutor's office, again, with all due respect to Judge Levinson and Commissioner Sheehan, having their background in law work and the likes. It's just an added format with regards to, and more specifically to law enforcement. And then having a recently retired HPD administrator, he or she brings that current information as to what he or she had experienced prior to retirement. And then again, SHOPO's role would be primarily from a labor relations perspective. And again, I know it's a concern of the community as well as to why officers are reinstated after they have been terminated. And again, the public needs to know Chapter 89 and of course the constitutional rights afforded to officers, their due process. Again, innocent till proven guilty.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be a good balance, and also that I think it's good that we do have the two new commissioners that are watchdogs, if you will. We all should be, and so I'm all for that idea.
I just wanted to put it out there.
Sure.
Go ahead. No, I was just saying, my question is, what was the mayor's reply?
No, he said he was going to bring it forward. He was going to bring it forward. It was in passing, just letting him know. And having experience, again, going on 30 years of service, I've seen the ups and downs of the department as a whole. And again, with all due respect to the community and the commission, I have the utmost confidence in our chief here, Chief Okimoto, Deputy Chief Blunke, and Deputy Chief Axe, and the entire department. Yes, granted, we're not perfect. We do make mistakes, and I've always said it. Behind every badge is a human being. So we are susceptible to making mistakes, and more so when we're under great pressure and demand with what we have to deal with in the public. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, our Professional Standards Office, that's, again, the commander, Major Lisa Mann, and her investigators. I have the utmost confidence in them and their competency into reaching and concluding to a complete and full investigation.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, I think Commissioner Levinson had his hands up first.
I assume when you referred to Attorney General, state and federal, on the federal side, you were thinking of the United States Attorney. I hope you weren't thinking of Attorney General Sessions.
No, no, locally, sir, locally.
With respect to providing input to the commission regarding outcomes of grievance proceedings in which a departmental termination may have been overturned by the arbitrator, and giving us some context as to why. That's something that SHOPO can do under any circumstances, isn't that right? I mean, I think we welcome that kind of input on an ad hoc basis, whether we had an advisory group or not.
Oh, sir, with regards to the advisory board, again, we would not voluntarily give information. It's anything that you guys are searching and need more information and to be educated on the matters at hand. But absolutely, yeah, SHOPO, if again, but again, tied into these types of grievances and settlements, there is a confidentiality clause, so we will not be able to disclose everything that's relative to a grievance or a grievance that has been settled by the arbitrator. So we're very mindful of that. So it's more of the procedurals and the protocol, and not necessarily the specific details of an outcome of a particular arbitration that was meted out by the arbitrator.
I guess I'm a little confused as to what's on the table. I, for one, would be interested in getting input in any instance in which a departmental disciplinary decision, whether meted out by this commission, which doesn't happen much because the kinds of complaints that we deal with are relatively minor, we're left to speculate as to why subsequent arbitration proceedings through the collective bargaining agreement resulted as they did, and I'm sure we're all interested in knowing something about, by way of explanation. I'd welcome hearing from SHOPO in those regards, or anyone else who wanted to provide input. But I don't see a direct connection between that and the establishment formally of an advisory board. And that's something that I think we could take up and consider, but I think it would be premature to make a decision regarding that suggestion right now.
Yeah, I would suggest that maybe myself and the chief can sit down with Tenari and kind of do a framework, and then we can work within that framework how we exchange the information. Because I know the simplest thing to say would be that it's more of a public relations, letting the public know what it is, but I know it's not that simple. I mean, there's a lot, as you know, the arbitration issues, and as T has mentioned, confidentiality and so forth. So if you don't mind, I'll just put it on as a side note. We can sit down and try to work out a framework, and then we can discuss it.
I'm not expecting a decision. It was just a food for thought.
No, I understand that. And we're just trying to, and I know Commissioner Levinson and myself kind of thinking along the same way, that we try to see how we fit this in without, making it going through that advisory board,
Right.
which may be a little premature.
And
So,
my concern
anyway.
was just being the perception of the public is what I was concerned about,
Yeah.
because we've had so many bad reports. I would be very happy
And-
to hear
and-
what the good things
Yeah,
that the
and a lot of
officers
times
do.
it's a little more complicated
Yes,
than
I
what the
understand
public
that,
says.
but I mean,
So
that was my
if the
concern.
commission don't mind, I'll
I
sit
just-
down and do that. But in the meantime, Commissioner Costello.
I guess my personal view is, I'm with Commissioner Thompson, I think it's a good resource. I hope the discussion of one, continues. I don't know what, it'll look like in the end. I see it as an added resource. I think right now we have 2 commissioners with a legal background. Commissioners always change, that makeup's gonna change. We may not have, their viewpoints. So for me, I see this as a resource
Yeah.
that commission could turn to.
Yeah, and if it's set up correctly, no matter who's on the commission, you'll have that input to get things solved. So, any more questions?
Yeah, I just got one. I know you mentioned that the HPD been going up and down. You've seen many times. What stage are we in right now?
As far as HPD is concerned,
Up and down.
it's great. Minus the negativity that's been happening, I can assure you, the department, if there was a morale problem, there would be a blue flu. But that's not the case. We're humans. There's many officers, again, as the case with Officer Santiago, they're not happy. Their own personal perspective, given, again, I cannot disclose the specifics of that investigation, but like they always say, there's always 2 sides to the story. So I have the utmost respect for Officer Santiago, as I do with Chief Okimoto and our PSO Commander Lisa Mann and the like. But the majority of it, Commissioner Flores, I am grateful, I'm thankful, I'm honored to serve alongside my brother and sister officers today. Yes, we do make mistakes, and trust me, it hurts all of us. But it would be a fallacy for us to just sit back and be drawn down by the bad choices by a few. Majority has continued to done great works, and that's why I posed point number 2 in my statement here today. Let's start to recognize the great work that our officers have done time and time again, just to balance the playing field, if you will, to let the people of Honolulu know that our officers are great. They do make mistakes, and they are being held accountable for their mistakes that they've done. Albeit an internal investigation, or an investigation that's done by the Attorney General's office and or the federal FBI in this case.
Thank you very much. I have an idea. When you have time, just give me a call.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
What do you mean by minus the negativity? What did you mean by minus the negativity?
Well, the choices that officers are made, the officers getting arrested, officers getting involved in domestic violences, and I shared with you at the last commission conference in Kauai, to show a unity in the department to include SHOPO, through the blessings of Chief Okimoto, we've had this class called United for the Greater Good. So you have Major Mann representing the administrative perspective, and you have myself speaking on behalf of SHOPO to educate our officers that we got to make better choices.
And that's
No.
what you were referring to when you said bad choices by you?
Well, the things that are in the public, where officers are either being arrested, being investigated, yeah, those are the things, and it's very few compared to the many great things that our officers have partaken in. Yeah.
Okay, hearing none. Thank you,
very
Chief.
much.
Yeah.